Welcome to another edition of Classic Credits. It's been a while and it's glad to be back. So let's just hop right into this episode's game, Superman. Man of Steel was simply an amazing movie. It inspired me to go back and look at this game from the arcades, one of my favorite from childhood and one of my favorite of all time. But many don't know that there was a Superman arcade game. The Superman arcade game was the third game to feature the last son of Krypton. It was released in the arcades in 1988 by Taito. Emperor Zsasz wants to take over the world. There's the plot. Who is Zsasz? Don't feel bad if you don't know. This is his one and only appearance. The reason is probably because of his army of hug ninjas and bunny soldiers that are not that intimidating. So the world is in danger, I suppose. This looks like a job for Superman. Or Supermen. Superman Arcade is a two-player game. Player 1 plays as the Superman proper. Player 2 is a red Superman. I always used to imagine that this was Captain Marvel. It could also be Mon-El, or it could be a red Superman from a What If story in 1963 or 1981 where he splits into a red Superman from exposure to red kryptonite. No, they didn't dig that deep. Just repeat to yourself it's just a game and play it. Palette swaps are just easy for game designers to do. There are actually unused resources in the game that showed that the original intent was to have player 1 as Superman and player 2 as Supergirl. Somewhere that this idea got trashed in favor of Red Superman. There has never been any official explanation as to Red Superman being in the game. The game has three styles of play. You have a side-scrolling beat-em-up stage. Superman can punch and kick enemies to make quick work of them. He can hover around. He can charge up a devastating shockwave punch for massive damage. Punches and kicks do the same amount of damage, but mixing them up is vital to hit enemies that are higher or lower than you are. It adds a little bit of strategy. Superman can lift cars, trash cans, and other objects to smash enemies with them. After dispatching of a boss, Superman then goes vertical. The moves are basically the same as the previous level, but you're always flying. Then Superman takes his flying horizontal. He now remembers that he has heat vision. You fly through the levels, destroying all in your path using your heat vision, your punches, and shockwave punches. The level of variety does a good job of mixing things up while keeping the same basic mechanics. For the most part, the game does the side-scrolling beat 'em up, then the vertical flying, and then the horizontal flying. But the last level is longer and it mixes up the order in which you do them. Superman has three different types of kryptonite to help him. Wait, I thought that hurt Superman, but anyway. Blue gives him health back. Yellow immediately makes his next punch a fully powered shockwave punch. And red will destroy everything on the screen. And red becomes much more frequent in the flying levels late in the game. And believe me, they're very useful in those levels. The game is pretty tough on your cup of quarters. Blue kryptonite starts getting more sparse the farther that you play, and the difficulty gets cranked up pretty quickly. As I mentioned earlier, some of the enemies are rather silly looking, but they can all kill you fairly quickly if you let them. And speaking of the enemies, there are no recognizable enemies from Superman's rogue gallery, but you can use your imagination on a few of them. Metallo, the Furies, Zsasz could be the long-lost cousin of Brainiac. One thing that always stood out to me was sound design. The shockwave punches particularly have a really nice effect that accurately conveys the power of that move. Also, Taito spared no expense and licensed the iconic John Williams Superman movie score for the game. The rest of the music is some of Taito's best in my personal opinion. One thing I've always found funny in this game too is that it has the laziest credits in history. Special thanks to many other people, as they ran out of time for the credits. At least they got some kind of mention. This game was rare, but it wasn't that rare. Still, many don't know that this solid and fun arcade game exists. There were around 400 of these machines made in 1988. There was no home release of this game, so you can only play it in arcades or something like MAME. There have been many games with Superman, though. Wait, who let that in here? Okay, that was a close one. Anyway, Lots of games with Superman. I might recommend Death and Return of Superman from Blizzard. Yes, that Blizzard. Lego Batman 2 DC Superheroes from Traveler's Tales, and the amazing Injustice Gods Among Us from NetherRealm Studios. Once again, thanks for watching Classic Credits. It's glad to be back. There are some big changes coming, including a slightly different format for Classic Credits, a few new shows, a new YouTube channel for Classic Credits, and the other shows to be on. I hope that you stick with the show and like what is in store. See you next episode where we'll show you games that you have forgotten or never even heard of.